Okay. Yesterday we talked about Article 4 of the Constitution, interstate and federal relations. Today we talk about Article 5. Now, Article 5 is laid out for you in a lot of detail on page 53 in your book. Okay. Now, when you look at 53 in your book, you might be like, holy cow, that looks complicated. Well, that's why I'm here, to uncomplicate it for you, to put something very simple in your notes. How's that? Okay. So, Article 5 of the Constitution sets out the amendment process. Now, this is a constitutional amendment process. Okay. Part of the brilliance of the Constitution is this. You can change it without having to start over from scratch, because they put a way to change it without doing that. Does that make sense? And we've done this 27 times over 250 years. The first 10, of course, are what? The Bill of Rights. Okay? So those all came down in 1791. So since 1791, 230 years, we've only changed the Constitution 17 times. And one of those times was stupid, and we fixed it. Right? So, the process here is laid out in the Constitution. Okay? So, there are two ways to propose, and there are two ways to ratify. Okay, and an amendment has to be both. It has to be both proposed and ratified. Okay, so the Constitution itself, as it said, we needed 9 of 13 states to ratify the new Constitution. There are numbers here as well. So the most common way, in fact, the only way that amendments have been proposed is through this manner, which would be a 2/3 majority of both houses. Of Congress. Okay. It's hard to get 2/3 vote on anything in both houses of Congress. Would you agree? Okay. Yeah, it happens, but not very often. So actually, guys, all 27 amendments have been proposed through this manner. Now, 2/3 majority in the Senate is 67 votes. Okay, 2/3 majority in the House. Not sure exactly off the top of my head. It's 435, so 2/3 of that. Okay. The other way, guys, to propose an amendment has never been used, but could be. Join the cult. Okay. Listen, the National Convention, the Constitutional Convention that we're talking about in 1787 that wrote this, was a convention of the states. All 13 states sent delegates, 55 of them, to Philadelphia for the purposes of drafting a new constitution. What this would do would be a national convention of the states that each state would send delegates for the purposes of proposing constitutional amendments. The number one amendment that this group wants to do is term limits on members of Congress. Would you ever see 2/3 majority of both houses to put limits on their own terms? No. So this is the method. Now, to this point, guys, 13 states have pledged this. You need 34, which would be 2/3 of the states. So 2/3 of the states for a national convention of the states. Okay, which would be 34. Okay, we got 13 so far to join the cult. We need more, including Kansas. Okay, Kansas is not on board yet. Okay, so that could happen. Will it happen? I don't know. Okay, but you could conceivably propose constitutional amendments through this manner. Okay, now, once an amendment is proposed, it's not guaranteed to be ratified. So, guys, the Bill of Rights, originally, guys, they proposed 12 amendments. Only 10 were ratified in 1791. One of the two that was not ratified in 1791 was ratified in 1986. Proposed in 1789, ratified in 1986. That's the 27th Amendment, which I'm going to say for later. Okay. Now, to ratify, we go 3/4. Okay. So the most common way would be 3/4 of state legislatures to vote. Okay. Now, so we propose an amendment, we send it to Topeka. The state House and the state Senate would vote. It just need a majority vote, the state legislature, both houses in Kansas, to ratify an amendment. Pretty easy. It's pretty easy. It's like a bill that would go through the state legislature. Okay, guys, this is 38 states, 3/4. Okay, which is really hard to do. This is hard to do. This is really hard to do. To get 38 states to agree to it. Okay. Now, the second method of ratifying a constitutional amendment is 3/4 of state conventions. Why do I keep wanting to use it? Conventions, keep wanting to be using an S there. I don't know. I want to write S, but it's T, right? Convention? Yeah, okay. All right, so let me explain this. And guys, I'm going to kill two birds with one stone here. I'm going to explain what state conventions look like, and then I'm going to talk about something called caucuses when we talk about elections, okay? Okay, now this would require 38 as well. Now, 26 of the 27 amendments have been ratified by state legislatures. Only one of the 27 have been ratified through state conventions. So this has been used before, okay? And I'll give you a hint. Which one? They were throwing some parties at these conventions. Like, let's have a convention and have a good time when we ratify this amendment. The repeal of prohibition. Right? Like, let's enjoy ourselves as we get rid of this stupid amendment. Okay? All right, now, let's somebody make Coach Lawbon proud. How many counties are there in Kansas? 46?
4 or 6.
Counties?
Oh, how many districts are there?
4 House, U.S. House districts. Now, state Senate and state House, there's a lot more. Yeah. Nobody knows this? How many counties there are in Kansas? Didn't you take Kansas history? Nobody took Kansas studies with Coach Lawbon? When you were a freshman? Okay. 105 counties in Kansas. Okay. All right. So, guys, this is not accurate, but let's just play along, okay? Okay, 105 counties in Kansas. All right. So when you're going to have a state convention, okay, each county is going to have a place where people can meet, a meeting place. And if you're a registered voter, you can show up and vote yes or no on this amendment. It's very democratic. Okay. Each county is going to have one of these meetings. Okay. So here in Central County, like these people are like, yeah, this thing, Kansas City, these people are like, yeah, we need to get rid of this. Okay. Lawrence, of course, we need to get rid of prohibition, Manhattan, right? Okay. But these people out here, out in the Bible Belt out here, they're like, no, no. It's the devil's juice. Okay. So who wins? Okay. Whoever has the most counties wins. That's how you have a special state convention. That make sense? Kind of weird, but it's one way of doing it. Now, guys, a year from now, in 2024, February, okay, we are going to see, you'll start hearing about, now you won't be in my class any longer, okay, so you'll hear about it on the news if you come underneath that rock, okay. You are going to hear about this on the news, and you're going to hear about what's called the Iowa caucus or the New Hampshire primary. Now, right now, 3 Republican candidates have announced they're running for president. They will be vying for the nomination of the Republican Party for the honor to run for president against Joe Biden. Now, Joe Biden has not officially announced yet, okay, but he has said he's planning on running. Now, will there be Democratic challengers to Biden, like other Democrats that challenge him? I don't know. The Democratic Party is much more united than the Republican Party. Now, Nancy is retiring, I think. I don't know. She's no longer speaker, but she was really good about keeping Democrats in line together. Okay. Republicans tend to be more fractured. Right now, anyways. Okay. But do you know the 3 candidates, Republicans, that have announced? Trump. DeSantis is not announced. No. You'll hear about it, maybe, if you crawl from out underneath that rock when he does. Who? The billionaire Vivek Ramaswamy. Woman. She's half Indian. Her name's Nikki Haley, the former governor of South Carolina. So there's 3 Republicans, right? Guys, that number's likely to grow by 10 at least. Okay, so you'll have like 10. So Mike Pompeo, Governor DeSantis, possibly. Okay, there's some names out there, people that are run. The governor of New Hampshire is a guy named Sununu. He's a pretty sharp guy. He's talking about running. There's a good number of people. Okay, Tim Scott, who's an African American senator from South Carolina. I'd love to see that guy run. Okay. So yeah, this number will grow. So guys, the first 2 elections to narrow that 13 to 1 will take place in Iowa and New Hampshire. But Iowa does what's called a caucus, okay, which is very similar to the state convention thing, okay, where if you're a registered Republican, you can vote in the Republican caucus. If you're a registered Democrat, you can vote in the Democratic caucus. You with me? Those are called closed primary states. You can't cross over and vote in the other parties. Now, some states have open primaries where registered Republicans can vote in the Democratic primary, registered and vice versa, okay? Where you can do shenanigans, like try and pick the easiest candidate to beat, okay? You guys following me on that? Okay, so a caucus, every county in Kansas will meet. So in 2016, guys, Trump didn't have a challenger in 2020, so the Republicans didn't have a caucus here, okay? Kansas is until June, okay? So in Iowa, with the Iowa caucus, so Vivek, Nikki Haley, and Trump will all be going to Iowa. So will Biden. Okay, just to shore it up. Okay, they'll be traveling. These other candidates will travel to Iowa and New Hampshire because they're first. So if you do well, like say you're a relatively unknown governor from Arkansas named Bill Clinton. Does anybody know who the governor of Arkansas is right now? I do. His name's Asa Hutchinson. No, they got a new governor. It's a woman. It's Sarah Huckabee Sanders. Okay, when Biden did the State of the Union address last month, she gave the Republican response. Okay, she's a young governor, Sarah Huckabee, but you guys don't know her. Okay, so she runs for president, and let's say she finishes in the top 3 in Iowa. Guess what? Everybody's talking about it. That's what happened to Bill Clinton. Nobody knew who Bill Clinton was. I mean, very few people. And then he did well in Iowa. Next thing you know, his name's in the newspaper. He does well in New Hampshire, and it helps like propel him forward. Okay, these are small states, Iowa and New Hampshire. So generally, that's where they usually start. Okay, and you go to a caucus. Okay, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, you go to a caucus. Now, in 2016, Sedgwick County, which is the largest, second most populated county, I think, but Wichita, the largest city in Kansas, resides in Sedgwick County. There's a lot of Republicans. So they hold their caucus at Century 2. In 2016, guys, it was June, and we still didn't know who the Republican nominee was going to be. It was between Trump, Ted Cruz, Marco Rubio, and there was a guy from Ohio, John Kasich. Okay, there were 4 candidates left. And 2 of them showed up in Wichita at Century 2 for the caucus. Now, I've been following Kansas politics since I moved here. That's never happened. Like, Kansas mattered. It was cool. So I went down there. It's on a Saturday, okay, right after Memorial, I think the weekend after Memorial Day. I went down there to Century 2, and word on the street is Trump showing up to give a rally before the caucus. There's huge line of people to get in to watch Trump. There's protesters out there protesting Trump. Okay, it's fabulous. It's electric. Okay, I'm in line, and now I'm a Cruz guy. I'm like Ice Core Ted Cruz. That was my guy in 2016. Okay, and so I'm hearing rumors Ted Cruz is coming. All right, dude, this is great. So I'm in line. Now, Trump, if you remember in 2016, I know you were 4 years younger, you were younger. He'd have these big rallies where tens of thousands of people would show up. So Century 2 has 3 like rooms, right? So Trump's holding a rally in one side of Century 2. The caucus is in the other side. So there's this long line of people to go watch Trump. I get there early. I get in line. I'm like, this is history. I'm going to go watch this, okay? I'm not really a Trump guy, but I want to see it, okay? And so I'm standing in line. There's this guy kind of walking up and down the line asking people questions. I'm like, I bet that's a reporter. And I'm like, hey, you want to talk to somebody? I'm a history teacher. I teach government. You want? He goes, yeah. Let me ask you some questions. And dude, New York Times, and I was quoted by that reporter in the New York Times. It was sweet. Okay.
What did you say?
I just talked about how I was, I think I said, I'm really a Cruz supporter, but I want to go see Trump. I think this is making history here. Because it looked by then that Trump would probably win the nomination. We didn't know for sure. Cruz ended up winning Kansas. Okay. The caucus. But anyhow, so I go in, Trump starts talking. I do a little video, take a couple pictures, and then I leave. Because I got to get back in the other line to get into the caucus. So you go into the caucus, and you got to show them your ID and say, you're registered, because only Republicans can go. Okay, registered Republican, which I am, so I get in, and on the floor there is Ted Cruz. Like, look, it's Ted Cruz. Now, he's mobbed by a bunch of people. I'm not a big autograph type guy like that or anything. But I wanted to go down there and say hi to him, you know. And so I get down to the floor and there's just people all around him. So I'm just like, I'm not going to squeeze through there. I'm just like, hey, Ted. And he looked at me. I waved. I said, what's up, Ted? Then I went and sat down. Okay. And then they give speeches. Okay. Now, if the candidates don't show up, they usually have people, local people, that will give speeches on behalf of the candidates at these caucuses. Okay. But, dude, Cruz was there. Mike Pompeo showed up to give a speech for Marco Rubio, who's a senator from Florida, which was cool. Okay. At the time, Pompeo was our 4th district representative in the House. When Trump got elected, Pompeo was tapped for CIA chief and then Secretary of State under Trump. Okay. So Pompeo was just one of our representatives who went to my church. Okay. Greg Marshall went to my church too, if you know who that is. Basketball coach. Pompeo's, he's still a member of our church. Pretty cool. But anyhow, and then nobody spoke for John Kasich, because he's a rhino. You guys know what a rhino is? A Republican in name only. They have an R next to their name, but they're not really Republicans. They just say they're Republicans. You know, kind of like Fox. Or Loveless. They're registered Republicans. But I'm kidding. They can choose for themselves. Okay. But that's a common term, rhino. Okay. Somebody that doesn't really have your kind of your hardcore conservative beliefs, you know, like some of you out there. Okay. Now, so guys, it was just kind of cool. I want to tell you that story. And while I had this up here, because I'll be talking about caucuses in the next section when we get to, we're going to do political parties next after section 2. And we'll be talking about this, and now you'll already have an understanding of what a caucus is. Okay. It's cheaper to do it like this. Now, primary is, hey, break out the voting machines, go to your precinct and vote for one of these 13 candidates. Okay. We'll see if anybody challenges Biden. I don't know what will happen. I think he's going to run. Listen, I think Democrats believe, I know some of you, you know, you look at Biden, you're like, oh my gosh, but listen, you're not everybody. And there are people that like what Joe Biden's doing. There are people that politically, he's already beaten Trump. So why would you put somebody else? If Trump's the Republican nominee, why would you put somebody up that may not be able to beat Trump? Biden's already shown he can. So, yeah.
So is the 150 counties all voting, is that a caucus or a convention?
Yes. Yeah. That's the 2 birds with 1 stone. Okay. So that's what the conventions look like. State conventions for ratifying a constitutional amendment, and that's what caucuses look like as well. Okay. The caucus is obviously much more common than the state conventions. This has only happened once. Okay. In 1933. That's when they fixed their error. Okay. All right, I'm going to stop there. Stop it. Sorry. Close up there.